When I was 4 years old, my mother took me to the local movie theater for the very first time. I was incredibly excited. I had my Regal snack pack all laid out on my lap with my mini popcorn, mini Skittles, mini corn dog, mini drink, and my mini little legs that couldn't quite touch the ground just swinging over the edge of my seat in sweet, eager anticipation. And then it started. As soon as the lights got dim, I was watching Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. It was great! Except for the fact that my mom didn't anticipate that the evil queen would scare the shit out of me so badly that I'd have nightmares for the next few weeks. That was the first time I learned what it felt like to be afraid. See, then fast forward to the 4th grade, and my list of fears had grown to include not only the evil queen, but ghosts, the dark darts, Darth Vader, my dad shaving off his mustache, and me running out of Pokeballs while playing Blue version. But then the day came that would change everything. It was a Tuesday morning that I couldn't forget even if I wanted to. See, standing barely 4 feet tall and scarfing down a bowl of my favorite colorful breakfast cereal, I remember watching the clock strike 6 a.m. Pacific time. I don't know why I was up that early. I remember watching my mother stare at the television screen. At 6:01, she stood still, silent and motionless. At 6:02, she put one hand to her heart and another hand to her face. And at 6:03 a.m. on Tuesday, September 11th, 2001, 9-year-old Ryan Yamamoto watched as Flight 175 crashed at about 590 miles per hour into the south face of the South Tower of the World Trade Center, banked between floors 77 and 85. And I watched from 2,861.3 miles away as over 960 people instantly died. But 9-year-old me didn't understand any of that. See, I went to school, and with my playground, sandbox, Insta friends, I heard them say things like, "My daddy says we should just nuke the bastards." But I had no idea what a nuke was. Or who they were. I mean, I knew they were bastards, but what was a bastard? See, I didn't know anything. All I knew was that I'd become accustomed to this new word called terrorism. I watched as an entire nation became so engrossed in fear that it made the evil queen look like one of Snow White's little woodland critters. I watched what fear did to people. See, growing up in my life, I've realized that fear for me has been relatively palpable things, like spiders and snakes in enclosed spaces, and flying and skydiving in really dark places. I'm talking birds and bees and sharks and seas and needles and speeches, beetles and leeches, and ticks and lice and dying in heights, and catching some kind of terminal illness or flu, or walking up to a really cute girl and being like, "Hey, I think I kind of like you." See, I thought fear was driving home from LA and ending up late at night in Compton, or watching any movie that starred Anthony Hopkins. I thought fear was in war, in weapons like nukes and planes and guns and tanks and soldiers' swords and knives the size of fists and gas grenades and bombs. And what I didn't realize is that fear's greatest weapon is merely an idea. It's like communism, or economic downfall, or divine intervention, divine judgment, or I don't know, maybe that all Japanese on the West Coast are spies and should therefore be interned. Let's just separate like an apostrophe. See, fear is the driving motivation behind nearly all of the world's greatest atrocities. It's irrational, but somehow it becomes justified. And in regards to the lack of any kind of evidence against my own grandfather, Earl Warren, future Chief Justice of the United States in 1941, just says, "All Japanese Americans are just waiting for the right moment to strike." A quote to which members of Congress applauded, and FDR nodded, and ironically, he suffered from the very same fear himself, yet makes the quote that we have nothing to fear but fear itself. Fear is the devil's best friend that has conjugal visits with our logic and reason. Fear is the vital puppet master behind racism. Fear is the grandfather of rage, the cousin of hatred, and the father of all violence. Stress, that's just fear when it wears its Sunday best. Fear wishes it could be respect. Fear gives power to tyrants and allows dire dictators to dominate their debilitated domains. Fear signs the unequal treaties and empowers Mao Zedong. It coats and covers cathedrals in carvings of horrifying hellfire. Fear fires bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Fear empowers the Nazis. Fear's fire incinerates human rights and civil liberties. Fear leads to injustice, the banning of marriage, segregation, internment, and genocide. Fear is the first Red Scare, Palmer raids, the second Red Scare, McCarthyism, the French Revolution, Hitler's appeasement, and the May 4th movement. Fear is Birmingham, Alabama, Tiananmen Square, all 9 crusades, book burnings, the bonus march, and Executive Order 9066. Fear is the failure of Korematsu versus the United States. Fear is police shootings at Kent State. Fear is Plessy versus Ferguson, iconoclasm, the Cuban Missile Crisis, the Iran hostage crisis, Black Tuesday, the Great Depression, and the Patriot Act. Fear is the often accused yet hardly held accountable accomplice to murder. Fear was the one that pulled the trigger in the murder of Trayvon Martin. Fear electrocuted an innocent Ethel Rosenberg. Fear rode co-pilot in the Enola Gay, and fear is the reason why I'm almost even choking on this stage. Fear is what separates us from what we possibly could be. Fear is what stands between us and our fullest potential, and I am sick and tired of about the way fear corrupts and it blinds, because they say we're in a war on terror and that's fine, but how does that lead to a bunch of ignorant and angry Orange County housewives protesting outside of a mosque with their picket signs? Terror is not a Muslim. Terror does not have a race. Terror has no religion. Terror affects people of all races. Terrible things happen to all nations. Terror is something that contains and corrupts too many lives, so the real war on terror begins in our minds. Thank you.